Hello and welcome to our View From series. We are at Swift Business Forum London, and I'm now joined by Thorsten Peisl, the CEO of Rise Financial Technologies. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
So Thorsten, you're going to join a panel later on today talking about blockchain and the challenges in implementing it in the real world. What are the main concerns when looking at the distributed ledger technology, of which you are obviously an expert?
I think the main challenge is really that people need to pick the right technology platform. Obviously, I have to say this as a technology provider myself, but really it's important to understand what is your problem that you're trying to solve. Then try to identify the appropriate solution and then pick the appropriate technology platform. So in the overall context of DLT or distributed ledger technology, I'd say approach the topic, it's less about the technology, it's more about the concept of decentralization and what do you want to decentralize and which technology platform is appropriate for that type of decentralization that you're looking for.
So we're potentially still at a stage when pitching for, with potential clients, do you still feel you need to explain exactly what the technology does and to get their hands around this new concept?
Yeah, no, it got a lot better, I have to say. So people are much more familiar with what a DLT is and smart contracting solution and the like. So the level of education, there's still a level of education needed. But overall, I think the industry clearly has moved on from the hype levels that we've seen last year.
Okay, so moving on from the hype, you're saying we can now focus on what it actually can do. And the opportunities, I think, are quite wide. The scope is very much big when looking at the post-trade environments. So how do you think that DLT can change the post-trade environments? What the developments in the next 3 to 5 years?
In the context of post-trade, I would segment the world into two areas. The one is around information flows, and the other one is around asset flows. When I speak of information flows, it's about exchanging data points and changing information elements between organizations and inter-organizations, like proxy voting or reference data in that context. That area is probably a little bit easier because it's for example, less regulated. On the other hand, we have the asset flows, where we move assets from one account to another, from one organization to another organization. It's a highly complex area, but this is one area of our focus. And in this context, I think we as a technology provider, we have to take everybody has to take a very holistic view. Just technology will not get you very far. You need to understand what is your operation, what are the operational implications, what are the legal implications, what is the governance model of the technology and of the system, and then obviously what is the technology solution itself as well. So a very holistic view is needed, and then we always advocate that people should really think small, start small, and find the smallest possible starting point for yourself in terms of asset flows. So which asset can you focus on? And the smallest possible starting point for that matter always has two dimensions. On the one side, it's what is the asset that you would like to bring into distributed ledger environment? And second, who could be the defined investor base who is interested in trading this? With say 5 institutional investors in one asset, you can create almost a mini market and then think through the asset, technology model, legal model, and so on and so forth.
Okay, so you start from one, you identify an area in which DLT can be applied, and then potentially you can think about implementing it maybe for wide operations, if not for the whole company. But how can this implementation really change that particular space?
So I guess it depends on what asset we're looking at, if we stick to the asset flow for that matter. What we are doing at Rise, the solution has 3 elements. One is about the issuance process of assets, making assets available in a DLT environment. That includes also cash. The second is the settlement, so the movement of the assets. And the third is a consequence of number 1 and number 2, record keeping. Right? So then the degree where distributed ledgers can help, or these type of technologies help, vary from asset class to asset class, jurisdiction to jurisdiction. Some asset classes are a little bit more manual, and maybe there's other asset classes that are more strategically relevant to an organization. So I guess you have to, as an organization, you have to pick and choose what is the right starting point for you, And then once you have identified that, ideally with the mini market of investors, before you get started, I would always advocate, say, let's assume this works. We need to write a business case that it will work for that single asset class, bringing automation to the issuance process, streamlining the settlement process, and so on and so forth. But as soon as we assume this will work, before we go into a piloting, let's think about the strategic next steps. So if it is in production or when it is in production, how can you grow from there? And for example, there are 3 ways of growing such a system down in the long term is, number 1, you bring in more assets and make the asset base more attractive to the existing investors that sit on top. Second, you grow the investor base, bringing more investors to the solution or to the infrastructure. And finally, you can add more services on top, dynamic lending solutions, and so on and so forth. So the asset servicing and post-trade solutions.
So it becomes an effective way of dealing with the environment. It becomes safer from a legal perspective, much more secure, and also from a potential cyber attack perspective.
There's many attributes.
So very good. So lots to think about, and of course we have the full day to keep the conversation going. You're going to join the panel later on today, so let's see what the discussion will, where the discussion will take us. Thank you for your comments.
Thank you very much.